Another day, another deadly war. Welcome back to Sovier's #1 broadcast station for all things warfare. My name's Markus Redwood, and it's so good to be back. Now, before we begin with the standard report of the territory and casualties, myself and the crew would like to wholly apologise for the 2-week absence of the radio show and the irregular scheduling of today's broadcast. As you may know, the war started with the blocking of all broadcasts at the day's start due to suspicion of pre-war partisans tapping into our radio towers. The towers were found, but not without a second partisan retaliation. On the 7th day of the war, as our broadcast started, those damned collies cut the lines at least 12 places, and it took this long to fix. To those who had pre-purchased your newsletters for the week's broadcast, we would like to apologise by offering you your next 2 weeks free, or request a refund by our broadcast on the 21st of the war. Now onto the news segment of our broadcast. 2 weeks ago, war was declared, and our peace was yet again disrupted for a glorious battle in Calahan's honour. At the start of this war, we held much of King's Cage, Lid of Mercy and Marben Hollow. The Colonial menace held Loch Moor, the Drownvale and the Clastra. The regions in which we held equal territory were Fisherman's Row, Faranac Coast, the Deadlands, Endless Shore and Tempest Island. We've lost some of the information from previous weeks, so in the surprise and free newsletter you received today, you will find the details as of broadcast. They are as follows. We have gained the entirety of Fisherman's Row, Stemmer Landing, Tempest Island and the Fingers, thanks to our outstanding Warden naval force. However, sadly there have also been some losses. We have lost the entirety of King's Cage, Lid of Mercy, the Deadlands, and we have lost the majority of Marben Hollow. Additionally, we have lost some territory in Faranac Coast, Stone Cradle, Calahan's Passage, the Clastra, and Endless Shore. Now, I know that sounds bleak, but don't go fretting you lot at home, because our Warden army are the apex fighting force. While those collies may have numbers and gear, we have our incredible logistics teams and strategy. You can only brute force your way through a war for so long, because the true winners of warfare are those who are prepared and organised, and our Warden logistics are the finest in Caovia. The Warden Training Guild is the backbone of our soldiers' logistics operations, providing our combatant troops with everything they need to win this war. My message to all those brave soldiers on the line who may be listening in: stay strong. You are Calahan's warriors. You are the line of defense for Caovia, and you are impenetrable. And with all that said, time for the casualty report. At the end of the first week of the war, the colonial casualty toll was projected to be around 587,000, at around 3,421 per hour. This is many thousands higher than the Warden casualties, and should be a point of hope that we can hold them back. We can push them back. Our Wardens are the guiding hands of Calahan, and they will drive out the Colonial menace. In the second week, we killed a total of over 1 million collies, an enormous feat for only 14 days of warfare. And on that high note, I would like to introduce to all of you wonderful listeners a new mainstay segment. That's right, in association with the popular soldier Robert L. Games, we would like to introduce the War Stories segment, a collection of tales along the front line collected by Mr. Robert himself to be broadcasted to all you wonderful people at home in an effort to provide a true perspective into the fiery battles of war. But before we start, I would like to remind you that in today's newsletter, and all subsequent newsletters, you can find the frequency to Robert's own broadcast. We highly recommend, if you don't already, tuning into his detailed accounts of intense battles on the front lines. He also covers retrospective accounts on wars long past, and collections of major wins and losses from both sides. He is a truly respectable man, and we at the studio thank him for this opportunity. Now, onto the stories. The following accounts are from the first week of the war. This first story is the first battle of Tempest Island, from Lucas of the Warden's 38th. In the first couple of days of the war, there were skirmishes around the Ayres, which saw it change hands between our Wardens and the Colonial menace multiple times before eventually entering the caring hands of the Wardens, enabling them to continue onward to Lairs Haven, where we were soon locked in a stalemate. Throughout the first day, we captured the Gale and withstood a naval counterattack. The account continues to the second day, which I will now quote directly. The quote is provided in today's newsletter. The real battle was day 2, as Scum and WN showed up to kick the Colonials out of the region. I noticed quite a lot of VF Colonials on day 2. The Wardens would set up a forward operation base north of the Relic of the Gale, launching many Mammon rushes to break its defences. Meanwhile, DNA and KRRG found a hole in the northern Colonial bunker base, launching a massive Mammon rush and blowing it up, ending the battle near the Ayres Bridge. The Warden army would meet up on the outskirts of the town and would begin to chip away at the defences. Despite the Colonial Mortar House's best efforts, WLL brought up 3 push guns to clear the region, and massive Mammon rushes would crush the town, taking out the Mortar House and clearing a path to the TH. WN this entire time had been doing a massive blockade of the island, making a barge wall to stop any ships, as well as capture attempted Logi vessels. The Colonials soon ran out of supplies in Lairs Haven, allowing us to capture it. Our second story of the broadcast is the Battle for Billhook Reach, from Season of the Warden's 6th, Day 3 of the war. The following is quoted reading of the soldier's account. After the Wardens finally secured Plankhouse and secured a beachhead at Rusty Anchor, they started pushing into Headman's Villa to take an incredibly valuable seaport that would allow the Wardens to fully push into the Colonial backline. Wardens of the 6th Regiment went behind the Colonial backlines through Shark Fin River, took and claimed the Colonial bunker base at Billhook Reach. Once Logi finally arrived, and Wardens started to redirect from attacking Headman's Villa, Billhook Reach was secured. The Colonials at Headman's Villa were easily cut off and could no longer be supplied or sustained. Billhook Reach was held throughout the night, allowing the Wardens to finally start to get a foothold in Reaver's Pass. Now our third story is the fight for Faranac Coast, once again by Lucas of the Warden's 38th. The following is a direct quotation of the account. The Wardens expected to lose Terror very early on, and were prepping to defend the bridges. Instead, a massive siege for the town and a skeleton road began. For 3 days the Colonials could see the relic, but never get close enough to kill it. The Wardens kept holding and holding until a large counterattack on day 3 was organised. The Wardens from the scrap of Ambrose crushed into the Colonial lines, devastating their flanks and causing their line to collapse. The Wardens at Terror then launched wave after wave of Mammon rushes, before the Colonials retreated to Husk Hollow. At the reaping fields near the town, the fields would earn their name for being a total bloodbath. Wardens and Colonials pressed hard until eventually the Wardens kicked the Colonials out of the town. The Wardens then attacked the Jade Cove and Pleading Wharf, capturing Pleading Wharf and launching the final offensive into Jade Cove. The Colonials broke a few hours before I wrote this, and as I walk into the cove, I am confident the Wardens will win this war. Now, I believe that is the best note that any story so far has ended on. But now for the final story, and it is an unanticipated one from the second week. During the besiegement of the Collie bunkers down in the Fingers, a diary of one of the fallen foes was retrieved. This is an excerpt submitted from that diary. The only surviving record of their identity is a symbol of a wolf inscribed on the back. A handful of Colonials held fast in a small concrete bunker located south of the Fingers region. We held for a good time after the rest of the Hex had fallen, fighting in the burning concrete and using what we had to fight them off. I got here somewhat late into the battle, so I did not see it all. We held for some time, the Wardens trying to use a chieftain to break the forward defences. However, we managed to hold them off and force the chieftain back, but were unable to put out the fire consuming the eastern defences, which eventually destroyed the main garrison of the eastern side. There was a sort of small infantry skirmish battle, the Colonials desperately defending for what we had, and the Wardens trying to push through and open the defences. This would continue till nightfall, where through the use of flamethrowers and outlaws, the Wardens were able to push through the gap, with a number of tanks knocking out the bunker, while the infantry would finish off the remaining defenders held up in the back of the defences. And with that, this is where I'll end this segment, with a demonstration of our Wardens' absolute determination and power taking the bunkers of the Fingers. Once again, we would like to thank the brilliant Robert L. Games for allowing us to use these stories in this collection, and we at this studio implore any and all listeners to go tune into his broadcast. The frequency is in your weekly newsletter for your convenience. We in the studio would also like to thank our brilliant new photographer Steepee for the cover photo of this newsletter, who we've credited also in all upcoming newsletters. We have no guests to bring onto this broadcast, so that means this is the end of the show. Thank you ever so much for tuning in, everybody, and we'll see you on the 21st day of the war.